Hello and welcome back everyone to a new ProGuides video. Everyone was hyped by the Hextech champions in Synergy in 9.16. So what's in store next? We've all been there after hours of practice and we finally understand the meta and bam, new patch is already out and we have to relearn everything. We're here to guide you so you know what to expect with the new patch 9.16b and what to expect in 9.17. Before we begin, remember to check out our link below at ProGuides.com. We keep you updated with in-depth guides, tips, and tutorials to keep you in the loop on what is top of the meta. So give that link in the description a click, and we look forward to having you there. Alright, so let's begin with the changes in 9.16b, starting with the champions buffs. The first thing is Aatrox. We're surprised to see Aatrox get a slight buff this patch. Spell damage has increased by 50 for Aatrox at level 1 and level 3. His nerf was pretty harsh in the prior patches, but he is still a great BladeMaster to play. The change doesn't affect too much, especially since there's no nerf or buff at level 2, but with the increase in damage, equipping a Hextech Gunblade on him in the early game can allow him to sustain himself better and stronger for a 3 BladeMaster composition. Now for Anivia. Anivia desperately needed a buff being a 5-star unit. Her AI has always been slightly awkward in landing her ability to multiple units, and her damage dealt is insignificant. Most players have a hard time choosing between her or level 2 Lissandra. For a legendary unit, she should not be compared to an uncommon. We should be excited to see a legendary minion, not, is she better than my 2 cost? Unfortunately, this patch's buff has only increased Anivia's health from 650 to 700. The increase in health does make her more appealing than Lissandra, but still doesn't change her status as one of the worst legendary units. Next up is Gnar. Now, you may think that Gnar is already very strong with his CC and his tankiness. Unfortunately, Riot has been struggling to make Wild or Shapeshifters strong enough to make players desire to play them. Wild and Shapeshifters have fallen around the B or C tier in the meta. They're not terrible, but there's just a lot more better compositions. Riot has increased his bonus attack damage from 30, 60, 90 to 50, 100, 150. That's quite the significant amount at level 2. He's always been a great unit, and hopefully his ability going off can carry your Wild/Shapeshifter composition to top 4. Now for another legendary unit, Misfortune. With gunslingers being so popular, Misfortune stands out as she is the only gunslinger with a large AoE ability. Riot has increased her ability damages by 100 damage at level 1 and 50 at level 2, making it more crucial to position her correctly away from being targeted by Blitzcrank or Vi. We expect this buff as a balance to gunslingers, as the next best gunslinger unit, Jinx, took a larger nerf, which we'll explain later on. Next we have Morgana. Morgana was extremely valuable in a Sorcerers and Demons compositions, but BladeMasters and Gunslingers have taken over. Majority of the time, Morgana is only able to get the first part of her ult off, leaving her greatest strength, the stun, nowhere to be seen. Riot has increased her armor from 20 to 30, but nerfed her ability damage slightly by 25 damage at level 1 and 3, and a 25 plus damage at level 2. We don't expect this change to be strong enough to get her stun off in the current meta, but for her to survive against Gunslingers and Blademasters enough to guarantee the first proc if you use her as a frontliner. Last but not least is Shen. Like Anivia, he also received a 50 HP bonus, which makes him a better tank within the Blademasters comp, but nothing too notable. This helps him survive to proc his ability, which is crucial against other Blademasters, Rangers, or Gunslingers. Time for champion nerfs. Are you sick of losing to the same carries over and over again? Riot gets you. Draven, Jinx, Kayle, Lucian, and Vi have received nerfs this patch. First, most of us can agree that Draven and Jinx can use the nerf. Blademasters and Gunslingers are extremely popular in the meta right now. Stack the right items, and if you don't have a Blitz or Assassin that can get to them, those champions can 1 versus 5 for you to victory. So, Draven has received a nerf from 700 to 650 health, and his attack damage went from 75 to 70. The nerf really affects him as a level 1 unit, but honestly, he will still be the same monster at level 2 with items. At the very least, he won't be as much of an unkillable beast at level 1, giving you more time in the late game to try to survive against a team who has Rapid Fire Cannon, Guardian Angel, and a Bloodthirster on him. As for Jinx, she took a larger hit. Her ability bonus attack speed has decreased by 15% to 20%, and her rock damage also decreased by 25 to 50. she'll still be one of the strongest assets to have in a gunslinger's comp, but we expect this nerf to disable players from being able to simply win with her by adding her to any composition. So overall, Jinx and Draven are still some of the top carries in the game, as they are at the epic tier. However, this was a good attempt to stop them from being abused as much. Speaking of Jinx, her partner that most people like to pair with, Vi, also received a slight nerf. Her ability will now take 25 more mana to proc. This gives your backliners more time to output damage before being targeted by her. Since many players are asking for Hextech to be nerfed, this was a good attempt to balance it. The synergy is still OP, but at least the two strongest units were nerfed. Now for the nobles units, Lucian and Kayle. Many players are a bit upset to see there was no official nerf on nobles besides the hotfix earlier last week. Even the nerf on the synergy's best characters are minuscule. Lucian's ability damage has decreased by 50 at level 1, 25 at level 2, and no changes at level 3. This does make the early noble buff slightly weaker, but doesn't really affect the late game as much when all noble units are assembled. Majority of the time, you would already have the Lucian at level 2 or 3 in the late game. As for Kayle, she didn't even get a nerf at level 1. Her shield duration went from 2.5 seconds to 2 at level 2, and that's pretty much it, because almost no one has ever gotten a legendary to level 3. As unfortunate as it is, we feel that nerf won't change the meta at all, making a full noble composition still extremely OP in today's meta. So that was all for the champions. Now for synergies. Brawlers did get a decrease of 50 to 100 HP. It'll help balance how overpowered this composition is, but doesn't change the fact that they'll remain at the top of the meta. As for items, Luden's Echo got a nerf. This was quite puzzling to us. Granted, Luden's Echo is extremely strong on Lucian, and can easily carry the early games with this combination. However, overall, the item is not very good, so the nerf from 200 to 180 damage feels like a great balance for Lucian, but makes the item even more equipable for other units. As this was a B patch, the patches were more minor. Nothing really stood out to shifting the meta drastically besides the hit on Jinx. We're looking forward to the new possible changes coming up in the next patch. So 9.17, upcoming changes and PBE experiments. As many of you already know, for 9.17, we're really excited to see another new champion. Pantheon will be entering the stage with his ability, the Grand Starfall. He will leap towards the furthest unit, stunning them and doing a % of max health damage to all enemy units on the way. This reminds us highly of Vi, who also knocks up or stuns the furthest target and pushes aside those in the way. However, the really special part about Pantheon is that we might finally have an addition to the Dragon and Guardian synergies. Both synergies were suffering from only having 2 champions in the pool available for them. We anticipate Pantheon to become a great asset to the team that will make him the ultimate tank against the sorcerers or gunslinger composition. Now, here are the upcoming experimental PBE changes that may not even be released, or will likely be different during the final release. First is Swain. Swain's nerf in the PBE right now is that instead of restoring 50, 90, 130 health per tick of his ability, he will be receiving 40, 70, 100. This is a great start to balancing this champion, as he is one of the top carries that does not need to rely on any types of synergy. Simply stack any types of items like Phantom Dancer and Dragon Claw to make him tankier, or Shojin and Seraph's Embrace to spam his ability, and you have a unit that is constantly dealing out a burst of damage while being unkillable. We anticipate this nerf to still make him a great asset towards shapeshifters or demon compositions, but less usable as a solo unit to just add onto any compositions hoping to carry you to the top 4. And now onto items. We're expecting a fairly large change to come from Morellonomicon and Red Buff. Both are S-tier items that are key counters to many compositions and other items. However, Grievous Wounds may not stop healing completely anymore, making it only an 80% healing reduction. Additionally, instead of just 20% max damage, they're aiming for 60% max health, but spread over 45 seconds for both these items. 45 seconds is essentially the entire combat, which makes us feel that this change is simply to put a max cap on the damage while still giving some usefulness to lifesteal and health regen items. We expect this change to still make them a great counter to Redemption, Hextech Gunblade, and more, but less OP so they're not a guaranteed item that everyone rushes to make anymore. And to balance some units that become unkillable with lifesteal items and attack speed, Riot is also trying out nerfs on Bloodthirster and Hextech Gunblade. Bloodthirster will lose 10% lifesteal, and Hextech Gunblade will lose 8%. Bloodthirster seems like they'll take a larger hit as they become the win condition to top carries like Draven and Jinx. As for synergies, Riot is also potentially balancing Assassins again. They're experimenting with lowering the critical strike damage and increasing the critical strike chance. We'll have to see how Riot goes through with it, and if the 6 Assassins meta will ever come back. Alright, and that's all for today. How did you guys feel about 9.16b? Were you disappointed on the lack of big changes? Let's hope that Riot's 9.17 will bring a new wave of excitement to the table. And lastly, please take note that all changes talked about today were tentative or very experimental changes by Riot. They're on the PBE server, but nothing has been confirmed yet except for the new champion, Pantheon. Let us know in the comments below though on how you feel about all these changes. Are you excited for them or scared that they will ruin your favorite composition? Be sure to also leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get updated on the newest TFT content.